I remember when rates went up and everybody started sharing that meme that it said, if you see your local loan officer at the bar, buy him a drink. It's hard out there. It's like, commiserations are nice, but commissions are better, right? Welcome to the Lendsetter Show, the show that blends the art of sales, the science of success, and the strategies of real experts in the mortgage and sales industries to help you grow your client base, increase your revenue, and get in control of your life. I'm your host, Preston Schmidley. Kick back, enjoy the episode, and don't forget to subscribe. What's going on, friends? Preston Schmidley here with the Lendsetter Show. I have a very special guest with us today, Joe Derilus out of Florida. He is a real estate agent. He is also a broker, doing mortgages throughout the great state of Florida. And so I'm very excited to be here with Joe today. We're going to talk about a lot of good things that he's doing to stay competitive and top of mind for his prospects. This will be a fun episode, and that, we're glad that you're with us. So, Joe, just to get started for the audience and to make sure that, they kind of get to know you a little bit, how long have you been doing real estate and then mortgage? What's your journey there?
Yeah, so first of all, thanks, Preston, for having me on. And to answer your question, I started in real estate in 2016. I remember vividly making a goal of mine that year because I had tried to get my real estate license 1 or 2 years prior to that. But in 2016, I made it a goal to get the license in the first 6 months, and I ended up passing the test on June 30th, 2016.
Nice. So we're coming up on 7 years doing real estate. Good for you.
Yeah, and then on the mortgage side, I've started doing mortgages last January.
Okay. What motivated you to take that leap as a real estate agent to get into mortgage?
Yeah, so I've always kind of been curious about that side of it. Also always about numbers and always like math. Even in school, I thought I was gonna go actually go to college to study math, and I remember either my first or second semester and taking Calc 2, and I was like, yeah, I think this is my limit. But the interest came really, quite honestly, initially it was the plan was for my wife to get the mortgage license and kind of be that sort of power couple and
Nice.
and kind of do business together. And in the process of her trying to get the license and me just encouraging her, I just started looking into it a little bit more, and even decided to take the course just so we can study together, because she had failed the test one time, and I think a second time, and she was a little bit discouraged. I said, you know what, let me see if I can kind of encourage her and go through it with her. And the more I looked into it, the more I know, after 6 years in real estate, the more it became clear to me that this was a much better license, in my opinion. For many reasons, but just the fact that it's a national license, and from my understanding, it's a national license, and you can get licensed in multiple states. So as far as scaling and growing your business, it just made a lot more sense. Still being in the real estate industry, but the fact that I can get licensed in several states within a matter of weeks, and without necessarily having to do the extra steps that you go through on the real estate side, that made a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, that was actually one of the things that attracted McBilly and I when we were kind of at the early phases of this, and we were kind of serving a few different industries, and obviously we were seeing where we wanted to go with the business. This is like, going on getting close to a decade now ago, but that was one of the things that we were like, we started in real estate, doing marketing for real estate, but the geographical limitation made that, I don't want to say it's challenging. There's plenty of people in real estate doing well. There's way more that aren't, right? But it's like that having that geographical limitation. One of the beautiful things about mortgage is, and I don't feel like enough people in the industry play to this strength, is that your border is so much wider. The territory in which you can operate. You could, what city are you in Florida?
I'm in Orlando.
Orlando, yeah. So you could be doing a loan in Miami, never have to see the property, right? And
Exactly.
I can't imagine a time. I mean, it would have to be a really, really, really high value property for you to want to drive down there, do the work necessary to sell it as the agent, right? So I think that's a beautiful.
Which I did actually.
Yeah,
Which I did for one time.
That's amazing. How big was the house? Like, how much was it worth?
And that's to your point. It wasn't that big of a house, and I realized that really after getting there, driving there, and went out with the client, and I'm like, you know what, this is not. I don't think this is worth it. So I ended up referring it out now for 30%. But
and there you go.
Yeah, but that is a huge difference. The real estate side is it's more localized and really personal than it is on the mortgage side. And also I also had reached kind of a point after 6 years of doing real estate where I just wanted to kind of be home a little bit more. I wanted to just, I guess, stay put. And just going back to even on the business side and the income potential of it also, just a simple Google search, you will see that just the average loan officer is making, at least in the state of Florida, is making a lot more than your average realtor. So, yeah.
That's awesome, man. So, okay, so let's kind of dive into the mortgage part of your journey, because I think this is where, it's good that people kind of got context for your past and what brought you to now. But you've been doing mortgage for about a year now, a little over a year, I think. You've been in our marketing program as a member of our Lendsetter program for about a year now. What do you and I always love, because you've always had the vibe every conversation I've had with you. I'm sure you have your struggles and all that. But one of the things that I've never really seen you is deflated, right? You always seem to be bringing a positive and an empowered energy to everything you do, which, I can speak for my team on this because, they've voiced this as well. It's an enjoyable thing about you, right? It's kind of, it's an attractive quality, really. Now, like I said, I'm sure that you have hardships that you go through, but you navigate those with grace. So my question for you, Joe, would be, what are some of the things in this year of doing mortgage? What are some lessons you feel you've learned that have helped you had success? What are some things that you feel may have become strengths of yours? Like, talk to us a little bit about, like, your evolution into that and what you feel you did that ended up being a really good thing for you.
So it's I think this past year, and I picked, a hell of a time to come into this industry. But I remember even in the beginning, a lot of people were saying, if you can get through this market, then you're going to survive in this industry. And so for what I can kind of attribute to my quote unquote success, I think it's more so of just a mindset that I have that maybe comes from an understanding of the industry, having some business sense on just the fact that I say on a bigger scale, especially we can say the past 5, maybe 10 years, data is key, right?
Yeah.
Information is king. And I feel like even with you guys' program and in this industry, in the end, what you're helping us do is just acquire data from, by the leads, the amount of leads, the type of leads that we get, and, just having the information, having the ability to speak to those leads, all of that gives us information that we can compile and use to our advantage. So for me, I think what that positive mindset comes from the fact that I know, for one, this is a long-term business.
Yeah.
Right. In real estate, though, the sales cycle in itself is 60, 90, and sometimes 220 days.
Sure.
So I know that everything's not going to happen tomorrow. Everything's not going to happen next week. So that means every piece of information, every piece of data, every lead I have is valuable. It's just a kind of when will I sort of benefit from that value?
Yeah.
So with that, I know I don't let a bad week or a bad month or even a bad quarter bring me down, because I know the value is not necessarily for right now. So that's been the kind of what the main thing keeps me going, because I know not only um, not only that is that the case for the business, but I have so many opportunities to get these different values at any given time, that there's no reason for me to just put my head down.
Yeah. Well, that kind of reminds me of what Buffett said. Everybody sees who's naked when the tide goes out, and so that's something that I feel is really evident right now in the market. We're filming this in April of 2023, right? And so we're riding off of the 2022, which was obviously a difficult time for people. And for those that were in mortgage before '08, there's, I don't know if you know that meme where it's like they're both they got the nooses on, and the one guy's looking at the other guy and he goes, "Is this your first time?" And so that's kind of, I've seen some of the people who have kind of navigated '08 and survived look at this with a similar lens. But this is challenging, right? For somebody who hasn't gone through this, I think a lot of people didn't know to prepare for this environment, these changes, right? And so, one of the things we talk about, and I think mindset's huge, but mindset's one of those things where it's hard to download because it's kind of like an operating system, right? It's like you could have the best hardware, you can have the best video card, but if you don't got Windows or if you don't got the Mac operating system, this thing it's a paperweight, right? And we're kind of that same way, right? If your operating system's messed up, doesn't matter how good shape you are, doesn't matter how well positioned you are, how much money you got, you're going to find a way to lose it. And so I want to talk to you a little bit about, because like you said, you have resources, and I appreciate the plug. But it's like I don't want to make this about me. I want this to be about you, because I could give the same lead to 10 different people, same type of lead, right? I'm not saying a shared lead, but I could generate the same type of lead for 10 different people, and there will be 10 different outcomes, right? Same tools, same everything. So my question for you, for those that are listening to this, maybe they're getting leads from paid traffic, referral sources. Maybe it's from social media management, and other things they're doing there. They're doing video marketing to have some top of funnel assets. Maybe they're doing SEO. But when they get these people, that's when the work begins, right? A lot of people think they're like, oh, if I just had leads, that would solve my problem. And then they get leads and realize, well, shit. Okay. So my question is, you've obviously figured that out to an extent. I mean, obviously we all have room to grow, but what are some of the standards and behaviors that you've kind of established for yourself to actually, like you said, the data is king, right? But how are you monetizing? Like what are your standards and behaviors you're doing to take that data, take those leads, regardless of where they come from, and actually get those people not only interested in buying a home, but to take action and become a closed and funded loan, or I'm assuming some of these you're also representing the real estate side of the transaction as well.
So if I had to put it in a way, I would say you have the clients that they basically want to make it all about the sense, the sense, meaning CENTS, and you as the professional, you have to make it make sense to them, SENSE, right? Mm. So it's taking that conversation about the sense to make it make sense really up here, for them. So, someone that leads going to come in, they're going to be talking about, okay, how high the market is, interest rate, prices, everything is high. But then you have to now get away from that conversation and just talk with them about, okay, what makes sense for them right now? Okay, yes, the market is what it is, but you're looking to make a transition, you're looking to make a change. Okay, does it make sense for you to make that move to leave kind of where, the situation you're in now to another situation? and compare those two. Does that make sense to you? And then just looking at the bigger picture for them on, okay, well, this is where you are now. You may be in an apartment that you're paying, a 2-bedroom apartment, you're paying $1,800 for. Well, if you can get a 3-bedroom home in your desired area that can not only give you the shelter that you're looking for, that you already have in the apartment, but it's also going to give you these additional benefits, with tax benefits, with just with equity, all of that. Well, is that worth an extra $200, $300, $400 a month? Does that make sense to you to do that? Okay, then yeah, that would make more sense. And even if you are paying that extra $200, $300 a month, well, what are the other benefits and even other savings that can somewhat balance that out? And in the end, when you make it make sense to them, and not necessarily talking about the numbers and talking about the sense of it all, that's when now you just bring the conversation down to, okay, what are they really doing? What are we really looking for? It's not just you making a business transaction. It's you making a life-changing decision. And if that decision and that change is going to make your life overall better, then, let's do it. Let's figure out how we can make that a better transition for you.
I like that. So, I'd imagine some people might listen to this and go, that's nice, Joe, but I can't even get people to pick the phone up and talk with me. What do you feel? Because I understand, essentially, to boil down and simplify what you just said is you level with people. You have real conversations with people about their real situation, and that's a very human experience, right? Which I think that's one of the challenges of being in any sales environment is there's all these tools and tactics and shiny objects, and everybody wants the strategy, the tactic that's going to, convert, right? And it's like, at the end of the day, if you understand the fundamentals, which is people want to do business with people, and even if you don't know how to sell, quote unquote, if you know how to make somebody laugh, if you know how to just be real with somebody, your likelihood that you're going to have some level of success goes up drastically because you're focused on the right things. But my question for you is, even before you talk to them, what do you feel are some of your behaviors or habits that you've established that help you have a level of control and consistency in your business? Because that's one of the most challenging parts of being a professional, honestly, is, we wake up in the morning, we report to ourselves to put our shoes and our pants on. We report to ourselves to even go to the office, right? And for some people, especially if they've been having a hard time or they're in a hard market, there's every reason to go, yeah, you know what, I'll go in later, right? Like you have established, I'd imagine you've had to, and I'm curious what they are, a set of behaviors that, regardless of this, regardless of that, I'm going to show up and do X. I'd be curious about what you feel some of those things are for you.
Honestly, I don't think I have anything specific that I do on a regular basis. I think just being in sales, for all these years, even before real estate, I used to sell alarm systems from door to door, for ADT. So it's just like you just have that mindset. Like you wake up for the day and you're going to hunt, and if you didn't get a contract that day, and you failed, and you weren't gonna feed yourself. So
throughout the week, do you block off, do you have set times? Do you have a set amount of either quantitative in time or quantitative in numbers of outreach attempts that you do?
Yes. So basically I follow kind of the system that we have within you guys' system for each day here. And on a particular day, you may have 10, 20 leads come in, and some days you have just a few leads. And it's just, following up with those leads from the day before or even the week before, depending what day of the week it is. And then from there, just following up on anyone that you made contact with or anyone that you sent application links to, and kind of go through that process of taking the person through whatever your sales funnel is.
Mm-hmm.
And then the rest of it is just, having a, specific, the biggest thing is just having that either a specific day where you you do some of those reach outs or even a specific time of the day that you do that, and then putting yourself in the mindset or in the mind frame to deal with that part of your business and your process.
Mm, I like that. What do you see as the future of, when you think forward, right? Because I think it's, most of the people that are successful usually have some vision of where they're going, right? What do you see as kind of the next thing for you? Like, what is, what does Joe Derilus of a year from now want for Joe Derilus of today?
Uh, a year from now, what I see and what I want is really duplicating myself maybe three to five, maybe 10 times over. Um, it's really kind of as much hands-on as I've been, and I've been intentionally hands-on with a lot of part, coming into this side of the business simply to learn, really learn the ins and outs of things to see if there's anything that needs to be changed overall or any things that I need to change, for me and my business personally. Um, and then eventually I want to just kind of step back more and again, kind of duplicating myself to either um, hire out some of those things or just kind of delegate different things to different people in different places.
Have you,
A year from now, I think that would be the biggest thing.
yeah, have you kind of identified some of the roles that you feel like if you had, would allow you to scale in the way that you want to?
Yes, yes. One of the biggest role is right now I just wish I had someone that would just once I get the application that then they would go through the process of uh, getting that application to an approval and also do a very thorough initial pre-underwriting of each application, each file that comes in.
Okay. So that, I'd imagine that's huge, right? Because you're,
Right.
and I talk about this when I do a lot of like consulting or coaching is, you could have the best front end, and let's say you get 20, 30 apps. It's actually, it becomes punitive the more successful you are on a certain part if you have that bottleneck on the back end, right? But on the other end of that, it's very expensive if you have a great back end, but you're not putting anything into it. It's like, what are we doing, right? You got the best resources that are unleveraged. And so I'm actually really excited to see you step into that and bring those people on. I think that that'll be huge because I'd imagine, you're, and I'm not saying you're bad at the back end, but what I've identified about you through our program is you're great on the front end. You're great at the getting interest, connecting with somebody, building rapport, fundamentally required skill sets to have a certain level of success in these industries, because you can have all the product knowledge in the world. You could be the most masterful. You could know everything about an application, but if you got nobody to talk to, then it's all fun and it's like getting degrees that you never plan on using, And so you've obviously have a lot of practical experience that has helped you have success. And, like, honestly, from what it sounds like is, from what you're telling me is, you don't really have like some sort of magic bullet. You don't it's like you wake up and you're consistently doing certain actions. You're making a certain amount of outreach attempts to have these relationships. And the future of your life, as far as expansion in that, would be to shed the things in which, like I said, I don't want to say you're bad at, but probably isn't things you're passionate about, right?
Right.
So that you can really hone in and focus on that front end. If you had that, so let's say I'm assuming that essentially this would be some version of a really great processor, right? Some version of that, right? If you had that, what do you feel that would do for your capacity?
Oh, man, it would definitely add to the capacity and it will also speed things up because even, that's one thing I noticed in this, in this side of the business also is speed is valuable. It's very valuable. Like you will, even, being a broker, I have, access to different lenders and I sometimes have to make that decision. Okay, do I want to go with the lender that's going to give me the speed or go with the lender that's going to give me the best pricing? And in this case, okay, which one matters the most to me and which one matters the most to the client? So I think the speed that would be definitely definitely be some benefit.
I'd actually be curious about this, Joe. I haven't had the opportunity to really have this conversation. Well, I guess I've had the opportunity, but it hasn't come up in conversation before. I'm quite privy to UWM. I think they're doing a lot of amazing programs and things for brokers. I have a lot of respect for Matt as an entrepreneur. They are obviously known for speed. They flaunt that, and they should, right? It's a great selling point. And I've even heard they're not there are a wide variety of situations in which they do not have the best pricing. I've also heard that there are certain situations in which there's no competition for the pricing, right? So it depends on the situation of the buyer. But I'm actually curious, in your experience, how much deviance from wholesale lender to wholesale lender is there in speed?
Man, the difference, it varies, but there is the difference in speed. And there's also a level of I guess of friction or not within a transaction that can influence the overall experience.
Yeah.
And that's also another part of it all too, that you as the broker or the loan officer, depending on the type of experience you want to deliver to the client, where both that and the speed, okay, will kind of help you determine, okay, which lender is going to be best, best for this particular transaction. But I would say on the speed itself, sometimes it's a matter of just of hours and or days.
So have you noticed like a difference in like like levels of urgency from lender to lender?
Oh yes, absolutely.
Okay.
The level of urgency, the level of communication, the type of communication. I can tell you this, UWM, you won't go a day without one of their account executives calling you or texting you about whatever's going on. And then you have other lenders, it's emails, strictly emails, and certain times of the day. But that again, depending on the particular transaction, you kind of gauge which is more important to you. But definitely, yeah.
Have you been to UWM?
I have.
Bro, that place is
last summer.
That place is wild. I was blown away by the scope. I mean, that it's legit a campus, and
right.
They got that, like, what is it? The world's longest. So they have some title where the world's longest like land bridge or whatever it's called.
Yeah.
I was actually telling McBilly this after I saw it. I was like, dude, it literally felt like I was at Google or Facebook if they decided to start doing mortgages instead. Just the scale. I mean, it's so blatantly obvious that they're trying to poke holes in everything that can stop you from being successful and effective. And it was just so beautifully orchestrated. It was, I don't know, it was a really cool business thing. If you're a broker, I would strongly, if you haven't visited UWM watching this, I would strongly recommend you do, because, and if you're thinking about being a broker, they might have some classes for that as well on motivating that. But, I find that to be incredibly inspiring to see how much companies like UWM are pouring into people, brokers, to be able to empower the borrowers, which was pretty cool. Joe, I know that you're constantly growing and investing in yourself, and you don't really slow down much, right? I'm sure you have some hobbies and all that, but you're kind of always on a growth plan, right? What is I'm curious, for those that are listening, what is a book that you've either gone through recently or that you've read in the past and it just transformed your life, that you feel should be mandatory reading for those that are listening to this?
Man, I would have to take you back to, I think it was my 19th birthday.
Okay.
And in this book, has really nothing to do with business, but it was a book by John Eldridge called Wild at Heart.
Mhm.
So I am a person of faith. I believe in God, and I know a lot of people in business are that way, and especially and this is particularly for men, and I'm sure there's a version of that for women, but the main idea of the book was that Christian men, you know, weren't meant to be as passive as they, I guess, they brought up to be, or they've taught to be.
Mm.
And that book, I think, just gave me kind of gave me really the permission to just be myself and not to be, the reserved and docile and nice guy. Just be, and that may just be who you are as a man. But if you're not, you're not required to be that. Be a Christian and also be in business. You can still be a ferocious, go-getter, aggressive uh, man, in business as a Christian. That book has really, really, I would say, it's been a very foundational to just, you know, be as myself, being who I am and how I approach my life. Being a Christian and just interacting with people. And sometimes that's not sometimes, almost all the time, I find that very, very surprising to people also. Um, but yeah, so that's the book is from John Eldridge. Wild Heart is what it's called.
That reminds me of Jordan Peterson talks about the essentially the mistranslation of the definition meek, right? And it's kind of become this thing where it's like, meek has been perceived as weak, but the historical definition is, I believe he said, those who have swords but choose not to use them, right? And I was like, it's a very different definition than weak, I think that speaks to strength, self-control, the knowledge that you're fully capable, we don't have to all the time, and so that's kind of a cool thing. It sounds like Wild at Heart is a kind of a book around that concept.
Yeah. It talks about how each man basically they have a woman to fight for. They have a mission to they have a fight to fight, and it was three things. I forgot what the third thing, but the two main things was and they have they have a woman to rescue, a mission to fight for, and it was another thing. But it talks about how men were created outside of the garden when before everything was all put together and nice and perfect. Men was created outside of that to kind of help bring those things together. So man was made, basically it was made in the wild.
Right.
So
No, I love that, dude. That actually the three things you were just talking about kind of remind me of it's actually kind of a studied concept in marketing, even though it's kind of from I guess you could say like story writing, which is the hero's journey. And essentially it's this idea that you go from the ordinary world to the extraordinary world. And there's usually a conquest where the hero ends up some challenge, right? Either the queen gets captured or whatever. I mean, if you look at a Star Wars, a Shrek, the Matrix, there's always this thing, right? The Matrix is actually a phenomenal example of the hero's journey, because it's like he doesn't want to go, he's resistant, but then he reaches the point where he's called to action and he can't go back, right? And it's interesting because I feel like we all at a certain point in our life identify our own hero's journey. I mean, for those that are pushing forward, they stumble into it, and those seem to be the passionate people. Those seem to be the people that they got something to fight for. I think that you said that well. That's awesome, man. Well, Joe, before we close out here, I'd like to kind of leave the listeners with something. I want you to imagine we have somebody that's in the mortgage industry that's either struggling right now, or maybe it's their first year and they're like, everybody last year told me that I should be doing this and now I'm doing this and what did I do? right? Like what is either a piece of advice, a tip, what is something you would say to them that can lift them up, I mean, either in tactic or in motivation?
The one thing I would say is to um, gather data, man, as much of it as you can from anywhere that you can, and then use, and nurture that and nurture. I know I say data, but really what I mean is just lead generation is probably, it's the lifeblood of, I guess, really any business, especially in sales. Um, and get as many as you can, and just nurture it, stay in front of them, and go through this wave with them. And I promise you, they'll remember your face, they'll remember your name when times are quote unquote better, and you'll achieve your goals then.
I love it, man. I was doing a coaching call recently, and I was talking to one of our members that they were struggling, and they've actually been with us a while, and they were I remember having a conversation with them back in like 2020, 2021, and back then they were complaining about there was no inventory. And, I mean, but we're talking 2-3% rates. I mean, it's free money, right? It's like now you can get more from a savings account, which is the first time a lot of people have seen a savings account in the threes, at fours. It's wild, right? And so they were complaining about rate, they were complaining about inventory back then. And now when we were doing a coaching call, they were complaining about rate, right? And so I just told them, I was like, it's always a great market, right? And they were like, what do you mean by that? And I was just like, you got to sell what you got, my man. Like back then you had rate, right? You sell rate. Now you don't got rate. You got inventory. You sell inventory. You sell what you got, right? All of the winners that I know that are winning, they sell what they got. They're not focused on what they don't got, because these things are cyclical. Rates go down, so do inventories. Rates go up, so do inventories, right? Now, that's not always perfect, but it's like you got to find what you got, and your messaging needs to focus on that. And to, like you said, always be focused on lead capture. One of the things, that a piece of advice I want to give to loan officers that are listening to this podcast as well is, when challenging circumstances enter the market, don't be one of the people that just perpetuate some negative thread, right? I remember when rates went up, and everybody started sharing that meme that it said, if you see your local loan officer at the bar, buy him a drink. It's hard out there. It's like, commiserations are nice, but commissions are better, right? And so it's like you need to be the contrarian when there's an entire market of people that are deflating they're making the borrowers feel like there's no way in hell they're going to get a house, right? I mean, and think about it from their perspective. When the real estate's being negative, when the real estate agents are being negative, when the loan officers are being negative, me, the average consumer with an average 3rd grade financial literacy and an average 7th grade reading level, I see that and I go, well, that's what I'm going to buy.
You're adding fuel to the fire. Fuel to the fire. And having been a realtor, and I saw that a lot, real estate agents. And I would be like, okay, this is going against, you're working against yourself by adding to the hysteria, adding to the fear, adding to the fire. And you're not helping yourself by doing that. If anything, you want to really kind of share some maybe a different perspective, or really make it make sense for people, for their specific situation, their specific market, because a lot of times, a lot of that stuff is hyperbole, just that's really on a national level.
Yeah.
But then you go into a specific market where they don't even know any of that is going on. Agents, loan officers, the consumers themselves, they don't know what you're talking about. And just, when I saw that, I felt the same way. I'm like, stop it.
Yeah, you're hurting all of us.
Right.
Yeah, you know, it actually reminds me, I went to Disney, this is probably a year and a half ago now, and every time I go to Disney, I'm a student, man, because it's like, if there's anybody who has mastered the art of, as you walk in, taking your wallet, turning it upside down, and just doing this, it's Disney, right? Their monetization, I mean, they would bottle air and sell it to you if they could, right? I'm sure they're working on it right now, right? And we were in this, so this was at Hollywood, what's it called? Hollywood Studios? Is that the park? Okay. Yeah, so we're actually, this is out by you, right? So we were at Disney World, Hollywood Studios, and we had just gone to the I can't remember the name of the ride right now, but it's the one with the Star Wars the what's his name? Shoot, it's been a minute since I watched Star Wars, but anyways, the guy that gets killed in some of the most recent movies by his son, who's like the new Sith Lord guy. Harrison plays him. You know, Harrison Ford.
Okay, yeah, Darth Vader.
No. We're butchering this, bro. No, it's the Millennium Falcon. That's the one I'm thinking about. The dude who played Indiana Jones played him, right? So, we're at the ride with the Millennium Falcon at Hollywood Studios, and we're going through, and I realized one of the things that I felt was really corollary to mortgage, especially the mortgage industry. I'm assuming this is very similar for the real estate industry. But more often than not, when I see loan officers, one of the biggest things that I see them doing that adds unnecessary friction to the process is they make it seem like this, you're climbing a mountain. You're about to climb a mountain, right? And one of the things that I've seen the most successful loan officers in the last, greater part of a decade, what they do is they encourage people, and we're not far. We're not far. We're getting there. It's these encouraging messages. And what I saw at Disney was really magical. They have a way of engineering the lines, right? Because the lines, you could be there for 30, 60 minutes for a 3-minute ride, right? So the ride has to be good, but the line actually has to be impeccable because it has to get you to trade an hour for 3 minutes, right? And feel good about that. And so they have this way of they bend the lines, and they make it look like you're always right there. We're just there, right? And it's like, oh, no, it's the next corner. Well, then you get to the next corner. Oh, no, it's the next corner, right? And one of the things that I felt was really magical about this, we left that ride, and I was like, that's really cool. Then we went to this Toy Story ride, which was down the street from that. We kind of switched, worlds within Hollywood Studios, and the same thing happened. I was like, this is intentional. They're encouraging you to feel like you're almost always there, right? And eventually you are, and now you're excited. Right. But it was never this uphill battle, right? And one of the things that I think is really critical for loan officers, I've seen this be transformative, is when people are struggling, they don't know how to sell, and they're like, I have a hard time connecting with leads. I have this kind of line that I tell them, and for anybody listening, I recommend this. You probably don't need this, Joe, because you're already doing well. But essentially, the one simple change is when they're on the phone with somebody, and they're talking about the market, they're talking about the person's situation. And keep in mind, we can't make guarantees, right? But essentially the statement is some version of, you take all the information in, you stay silent for 3-5 seconds. You go, you know what, John, I obviously I can't make any guarantees here, but I've done a lot of loans in my life, and I think we got something here. I think that there's some options that we have that could help you out. And I'd like to get started on this today because it's honestly a great time for you. I'd fear that if we wait, rates go up, and we're just adding reasons why you shouldn't change your life. So I'm seeing a lot of good things here, and if I have your permission, I think we should proceed. Right? It's simply giving a message of hope, and like, you got a shot at this, right? Being the advocate, right? And it's kind of like, I've always viewed my role in your life and your role in the borrower's life as Yoda to Luke Skywalker, right? It ain't our fight. I'm the advocate. My job is to empower you to take the hero's journey, right? And your job is to empower them to take the hero's journey. And everybody I've seen that has success in this industry, on some level or another, they're an inspiration to their borrowers. They are positive always. That was one of the first things that I recognized about you when you came into our program, is I was like, man, this guy is just a ball of positive energy, right? Which I'm sure serves our team because they enjoy working with you. But I'm sure way more than that, it serves you because people are attracted to you. In a sea of negativity, Joe's this beacon of light, right? And it's like such a simple thing to do, right? I mean, it's hard to make that a lifestyle, but once you're there, it's like, it's just how I am, right?
Right.
I
Right.
think it's great that
And
you.
it's funny when you said, I'm going to a lead from the system here where, this guy said, he no longer wants to look. And I asked him, okay, do you mind me asking why, why, what happened, why did you change your plans? And he's, rates are high, prices are high. And I said, okay, what were you quoted? Were you quoted something or what was it? And so he was quoted something in the 6 and 7s. And kind of like you said, I said, you know, I told him I did tell him about a client that, recently helped. And I said, I would love to give you, a different, I would love to give you a different quote if you don't mind. I said, I think I can get you in the 5s or 6s. I just did that with a couple of clients recently. Would you be interested in that? And he said, yes.
Well, I love it, man.
Just giving that hope. I think I can, you know, would you, would you reconsider?
That's huge, man. I remember I listened to a call because I do that periodically for members that, I listen to less of the calls of people like you because I'm like, okay. I mean, yes, I could learn what's working, but it's like that you need less coaching than other people, right? It's like that's kind of now. I'm sure that you seek it out, and that's awesome. But winners, I've learned in this business, winners win, right? So, but sometimes I'll listen to calls to be like, okay, what's going wrong here? And I remember we had a member that was saying that people just aren't, they're not ready to buy anytime soon, right? Which is a segment of the market, right? It's like, I mean, that's the reality of a lot of this. You get 100 leads, especially direct to consumer. Yes, some of them are in leases. Some of them aren't ready. Some of them have some contingency in life. Some of them are going through a marriage. Some are going through a divorce, right? I mean, yes, of course, all of that. But I remember listening to this call, and the person, the borrower essentially said that they wanted to wait and they didn't feel they weren't ready. And so our member said, can you kind of just tell me what you mean by you're not ready? And the borrower said, well, I was talking to my uncle who he's a mechanic, and he's pretty successful, right? And he said that since we only have 20,000 saved and a 720 credit score, we're not yet in a position to buy a house, right? And I'm, and the loan officer let him off the hook and go, oh, okay, well, thanks for letting me know, right? And I'm like, what?
What?
First of all, he's a great mechanic, and that's awesome. But Tom the mechanic shouldn't be talking about mortgages because he's not aware of what it takes to qualify. And so, I realized, I'm like, you almost have to, I don't want to say you have to make people, but you have to be such a strong advocate for people to dispel the mistruths that exist, right? It's like, I'm sure that person's uncle meant well, but the only people qualified to be talking about mortgages are the ones with licenses, right? And so if we hop on the phone and allow people to be quote unquote educated by anybody else that's not in the industry, that has no finger on the pulse of what's actually happening, it's a disservice, right? And so those are some, I mean, I think it's just about hearing people out, which is really the theme of what you said, but just also being the advocate of truth when there's a sea of mis and disinformation, so I feel like we just went through a few things that people can take away from this. So I guess my final question for you, Joe, is, are there any cool tools, things that you've been using lately? It could be an app, it could be a product, it could be a service, or that you feel are propelling your life and business forward?
Tool, um, just anything with video. Um, I'm becoming more and more using Loom for
Hell yeah.
not just for just for almost everything. The main thing, I think I've got this from you guys was, anything that you get asked about more than once,
Mm,
make a Loom video, make a Loom
yes.
video for it, or and it could be something too that it may just happen once, or it could be something that's very unique, but generally that thing is going to be asked again.
Mhm.
Make a Loom video for it. Something I'm working on now is just going through the simple process um, of going through the application and just talking about parts, different parts of the application
Dude, I love it.
that even in there, there's not an asterisk next to it, but it's still important for them to provide that information, and just going through that over Loom with so clients know, okay, this is exactly what I want from you. So again, just trying to minimize the friction, through the process.
I love that. And yeah, we are huge advocates of using Loom. We use it internally. It sounds like what you're essentially doing is creating a training portal for borrowers on how to buy a house. I mean, it's like, and you're doing these conversations anyways. The one thing I always recommend to people, if they're like, yeah, video sounds great, but I don't know where to start, just go through the sent folder of your email and look at the last 50 emails you've sent. How many of them are the same? Start there. Make that video. That way, the next time it's asked, guess what? You have a link. Copy, paste. There you go, John. Right? You don't got to keep
Yeah.
typing the same email, having the same conversation. So not only do you save yourself time, you actually build rapport substantially faster, because most people are texting or emailing, and there's a time and a place for it. But there's actually three components to us understanding each other. There's our tonality, there's our body language, and then there's the actual words we use, right? The crazy part is everybody puts all the pressure on the words that we use, when that's only 7% of the information that gets across. The other 93% is split almost evenly between body language and tonality, right? And so by you using Loom, what you're doing is leaning into your strengths, because now they get the same experience or a similar experience as to what it would be like if I were to be in the same room as Joe, right?
Yes,
And now we're building relationship, and we're doing it efficiently because you can make that Loom on your time and they can watch it on their time, right? Whereas if you're like, let's meet in the office, they got to go out of their way. They got to take a break. They got to take time away from work, right? They got to come in. Now it's a chore. You're making this difficult. One of the things when I first started implementing Loom in my insurance brokerage back before I sold it was I had this like rating, like this quote thingy built in where I had a button where it's like, if you accept, press this. If you have questions, press this. And what I would notice, I would also study the analytics, was the videos tended to be watched around 9 to midnight. And the cool thing was, when there was a couple, I would notice a very common thread where the video would be watched once, and then in about 10 minutes it would be watched again. And I can only imagine, right? I wasn't in the room, but I can only imagine the husband and wife who was the initial prospect went, oh, yeah, that looks good. Here, check this out, honey. Right? And what you're doing is you're actually doing them a favor, right? Because if you don't give them the video, you're essentially going, hey, average American with a third grade financial literacy, here's a really complex concept. Explain that to your spouse. Thanks. Right. And now they're forced to confront the fact that they don't really understand. Right. So by making a video, you go, no, don't worry about the work here. You can watch this and show it to your wife, show it to your husband. Right. And so you're making their life easier. You're getting the message across in a pure form, and you're building relationships. So, Joe, I love that you're using
and the speed speed of it too, because now imagine, they would have to get their schedule and their schedule in place and correlate with your scheduling, and a meeting, a video that you could you did today and sent out today would probably take 3 or 4 days to schedule something for you to get on with them. And yeah, it's an amazing tool.
I love it, man. Well, Joe, we've had a fun time this hour together. I really appreciate your time. For those that are listening,
appreciate you having me.
Huh?
I say appreciate you having me.
Oh man, it's been a pleasure. So for those that have heard this and go, man, you know what? I could use a little bit of Joe in my life. Where can they connect with you?
Social media on IG. You could look for me. It's Joe Derilus is where you find me, and then on Facebook you just type in my name, Joe Derilus. Or, you know, you could Google me now. I have I have different pages and stuff like that. I will, you know, point you to me, you know, some way, somehow.
I love it.
Search Joe Derilus.
He said you can Google me. That hits different. Awesome, man. Well, Joe, thank you so much for hopping on with us. It's been a pleasure, and keep kicking ass. Okay, bro?
Appreciate it.